David, yes, I want to welcome you on here.
Thanks.
We got connected through, I believe, Buffini.
That is
You-
correct.
You're a Buffco agent.
I'm a
And
Buffco.
yes, you're a Buffco. And you were on the search for a unicorn realtor, as you would say.
Yes.
What is a unicorn realtor so they can know?
Well, it depends on who you're talking to as how they interpret it. But my interpretation of a unicorn realtor is really what most um, buyers and sellers, but in my case, a lot of time buyers are looking for, which is that that magical experience, that realtor that is elusive and mysterious. And in my sarcastic way, and when I'm talking about buyers, I'm referring to, an agent who's experienced and still willing to work with you as a first-time home buyer. Because it's just, I don't know the specific stats, but I know there are 3 million listings or 3 million licensed agents and a million realtors. So based on the horror stories I've heard, not all of them can be that good at what they're doing. So, I say a unicorn is an experienced professional. They can also be a well-trained new agent, or definitely a well-trained buyer's agent. But as we all kind of know, the longer you're in the business, a well-trained new agent is just unfortunately not really a thing that we see a lot of, unless they're on a great team. There's a whole lot of new ones out there that are just trying to do it. So, that's the half glass empty side of it. The half glass full side of a unicorn agent is being able to find, a lot of people are like, wow, how did you know that person? They're the best. Well, that's all I do. I find that person in each town.
Throughout the United States, right?
Yeah, 254. Although I have to change that number because Gloria, you've got it's like Gloria is my number there in Florida, but you've got these little other people that help me out with you too. So I'm maybe probably close to 260 now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have our own umbrella of unicorn agents.
Yes, you do.
Our
Yes, you
unicorn
do.
realtors. So that's why I kind of wanted you to meet the team too, because I know that's very important to you that your referrals or the people you refer are working with, good agents. So,
I
we work
appreciate
as a
that.
team and we always talk about deals and try to get through deals together. So it's really a group effort.
That's unusual, and I appreciate you being understanding at the beginning of our conversations about that, because I'm as curious as you, wanting me to talk to the team. I'm as curious to talk to you, and because there are a lot of teams that are not run with such intercommunication, and it's something I really respect.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very
So,
cool.
how long have you been this podcast? I mean, I've been looking at the page and all the episodes that you have. It's pretty intricate. You're up to 82 episodes now.
Yeah, we had I started in 2019. Basically, it was March 2019, right before my 49th birthday. I was 13 years in real estate, and about 12, my wife started to see me burning out. So I started to really focus on where I was going to go next. So March 1st, 2019 was the first episode. And I did them like a lot of people say, when you start educating, you feel like you're just, a guy on YouTube with two guys watching his video and that's it. That's kind of what it was. But it was really just a personal choice for me to rededicate towards first-time home buyers, because where I am at the other Disney, on the other side of the world, That was my high school and college job. And I've got 107 now. Oh no, I just closed one the other day. 108 transactions with people who work at Disneyland. And my wife was like, you really like working with them. So I had a good mix, here with about 5, average sales price going from 560 up to now, I think I'm at 782. 20 deals a year was great and was having a good, making a good living. And I was mixing 5 to 6 first-time buyers in every year with that. And because of the Disney connection. And originally it was also, I started in 2005, in 2006, I got my license at the very beginning. But, there was the crash, there was the tax incentive where they were giving everyone $8,000 for first-time home buyers in 2010, I think for like 6 months. So I started using everything that I was learning with that and realizing how much I was enjoying working with the first-time home buyers. And, that's where I started and it's been 3 years going now and 500,000 downloads. And I seriously thought I was going to run out of stuff to talk about, but oh, nope. There's a new topic every week for first-time home buyers. So it's been a long time and a lot of topics. And it's the next step is going to be turning into almost kind of a question and answer radio show because there's a new one every week. Right now, everyone's so concerned about getting in, and that 80-second episode you just mentioned that we just dropped happens to be about a VA buyer who got a unicorn up in DC and got a 0 down loan accepted in the 2022 market.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Think about it, because I know last year VA and FHA was getting no love.
Yeah. And it was a miracle. And that's why we put the story on, But it has to do with those relationships. Whether you're on a team with someone's name who has a reputation in town, or you yourself have the reputation in town, that's the unicorn fairy dust, as it were. And being able to understand how to write the offer and what to do, and whether you're covering the seller's closing costs to keep the net down so you still have a good number that you might be able to hit the appraisal in case you only have a limited appraisal gap, or whatever, or understanding the appraisal gap. This unicorn got this VA lender or this VA borrower a home with a well-written escalation clause. And, I know people have different thoughts on them, but at some point you got to do what you got to do in 2022. So.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you come up with your topics for every week?
Where is it? Somewhere. Me and 4 o'clock in the morning in this notebook was the beginning. Oh, that's the blank one. The real one's near it. When I was thinking about it, and then it turned into just calling my first-time buyers, going through my database. Great way to check off my calls, notes, and pop-bys was to be able to have an excuse to call my old buyers and they're just ask them their big fears. And now once I got kind of the basics down, I think after that it's just been sales 101 and just listening. I listen to the questions that come in the most right now, what people are most concerned about. So surprise, I can go and look at my podcast and see which topics get the most listens. So, shocker at the top 3, housing bubble, bidding wars, and continuing with how do I get my offer accepted. So that's, and so it's like every time I think I'm going to run out of topics, I'm like, oh, the market will shift someday and I'll have a whole new way to talk about it. Like, how to take advantage of a seller of a buyer's market. That'll be a fun one to do. So
whenever we get there, right?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'd be retired by then, but who knows?
So what's your take on this? Do you feel that a shift is coming, or is it going to be an adjustment? I'm curious.
2 or 3 weeks ago, I would have stood by my stats. I in my podcast, I wrote, and then I recorded a lot of stats. I did a lot of research, stole a lot from Brian's bold predictions, like I do every year. But something that I think that it's unprecedented and it's starting to look a little scary, but as far as affordability, that's my biggest concern. But the stats don't have any of the precursors of a crash when you look at the inventory being, I think it's 4 times less nationally than it was, or no, 600% less than it was in 2008. So if we had 1 million foreclosures, we'd still be 500% less than, because it was 1 to 6 million units available. That's such a huge factor in it. What I could see is a year or two of it just being flat as all get out, but between that and one of my favorite stats from Brian that I've heard, I didn't hear a lot of people talk about in the last crash. When you listen to the why it's not going to be a crash people now, they say a lot of the smart things. And it's, I saw one on TikTok yesterday where the guy was being funny and he showed a FHA guidelines now, and it was like a phone book high. And then he said, here's the FHA guidelines from 2005. And it was, and then he turned it around, and on the piece of paper it said, can you say I have a job? Can you sign your name here?
Right.
And if you pass both of those, then said, great, sign here and you have a loan. So, and everyone talks about that. But I think one of the big ones is Brian talked about in way back when, home equity lines of credit started in mid 80s is when they got really big. And it took from the mid 80s to the year 2000 for it to get to 60 billion that they had, every year it was getting a little more. 60 billion in 2000. In 2006, it was 626 billion. So in just 6 years, when people saw their homes going up, that's not even close. The numbers right now, the number of HELOCs in the country are single digits. And most of them are only going to improve if there's some sort of home improvement. You can't use them to consolidate your credit cards and go out and buy CDs now.
Right.
And, people aren't using their houses as ATMs. So I think that makes a big difference.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the affordability is still a concern. I'm with you there.
Yeah. Like I said, 3 weeks ago, I would have stood by it. But the past couple of weeks, I'm hearing a lot of smart people talk about the affordability. So I wouldn't be surprised if we flatten.
Yeah, if there's an adjustment or stabilize at least.
Yeah.
I know here in Florida, home buyers are experiencing higher home prices, higher interest rates, and higher property taxes, and have higher property insurance. Like homeowners insurance is going up too. So they're being hit at all ends in terms of home ownership. Plus our rent is ridiculous. I'm not sure what it is over there on your side, but yeah.
I did for one of the podcasts I went to, because I mean, the 2022 numbers, I mean, we're barely at the end of the first quarter. They're already at like 15.9, which is insane. The 2021, I did a apartment guide, or somebody did, I did 100 metro areas, and it was up to like Long Beach, which is right south of right north of where I grew up. They had in 2021, they had an 80% increase in some places. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But, you know, I'm hearing about 7, 12, 15 all over the place. And that affordability is going to change things. The one thing that is interesting about growing up here in Orange County, California, which my dad was just the luckiest, 1977 transferred here. No idea we were going to be in this area that, you know, was going to continue to get so expensive. But I've seen people compromise on the American dream. I've seen people, every first time buyer I've had, you don't have that sitcom house with the white picket fence when you're fresh out of college. My people have all adjusted their mindset, because if they're from someplace else and they moved here and now they want to raise their family here, they're changed their mindset to getting used to starting in a condo to get to the house. And I think as affordability continues, there might be first-time buyers who have to get a Southern California frame of mind in order to keep it going. And as much as I think skyrocketing rents and not enough inventory is gonna really damage the entry level, I think it might just lower the expectations of a lot of people on their entry level and fill a lot of condo and townhome living. But like I said, a week ago, I would have said that with a lot more passion. Yesterday, there's really smart guys I listened to on the show called the National Real Estate Post just were talking about how much rental single family stuff is being built. They're building it to be rentals, not to be homes.
You have that here too.
The builders are putting their money into that because they see a quick buck, and they also, you know, I don't know what their algorithm is for selling it, but they must be selling it at a different price point because the buyers are going to get a continual growth. You know, it's not going to be a one-time payout. Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to chime in on that particular point. So, believe it or not, I was in a barber shop, and there was a guy talking about that very same thing. And he talked about how, so I guess he has family members that are contractors that build homes. And the hustle for that he claims, is that they get these government grants for affordable housing grants, that they're going to set these homes up as affordable houses that you can rent first, right? Like, only rentals available. They have to sit for 10 years and collect rent. But once you're past that 10-year mark, you can begin to convert those into, whether they be condos or sell them all off as homes. So you've been collecting rent for 10 years, and you didn't really pay for much of anything because the money came from the government. So you got the money from the government, you get money from the tenant, and the third part is the sale off of the property to gather in all of the extra money. So it's equivalent to a triple net lease. He said, like, you get in all the money from all angles, you know. So
yeah, and they're coming back with they're coming back fierce now, because whatever their algorithm they had, you know, if I build here and I sell, or I build here and I turn them into rentals, the number flipped, because the rent number that they can plug into that line item is now so much higher. and they're having to do something to offset the costs of supply chain and the lumber. And unfortunately, the cities, I mean, that's the big thing you hear from all the builders is how difficult it is to build. At least that's their excuse.
Right now, post-pandemic.
Post-pandemic, cities and permits and all that. But I tend to take everything that they say about that with a grain of salt, because I seem to remember how the permits were really easy to get in 2004, 5, and 6. But then in 2008, 9, and 10, suddenly they didn't want to build anymore. So,
hey, do you mind? I took a couple of notes. I had a couple more questions, if you don't mind.
Rock on.
Is that okay? Awesome.
Yeah, good.
Your show, Gloria. You tell me.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I actually have about 4 questions for you. So you mentioned that you had started to kind of burn out. Why? What was the burn? What was causing that? Was that just life? Was that I'm kind of hating this business? I'm tired of chasing the client. What caused that?
I think it was, when you're a buffco and you're deep into it, you realize that, and my dad was 35 years in sales too. And I remember he had all those success
posters and quotes
all over,
Yep.
Babe Ruth, Babe Ruth had, whatever it was, or home runs.
So many home runs, but he struck out this many times.
Yeah. Yep. You've seen them.
Mm-hmm.
So, Wayne Gretzky, you only take 100. You make 100%. You miss 100% of shots you don't take.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good stuff.
So that combination of because of adding personal growth into it, the Buffini company really made me analyze who I was. And one of my strengths is a motivator. And they call it Olympian in the profile.
Yes.
And I was getting kind of crushed because no matter what you do in the business and protect yourself, you still have to be careful. And I was I hadn't the minutia of doing, as opposed to the small ended up being a bigger window than the time I spent educating and helping and lifting up.
So you weren't really doing what you were passionate about at that point. You were kind of doing the day-to-day, but it was getting on your nerves, and you had a different passion at that point.
And I'd always
That's
had
what I'm
it.
hearing, if I'm paraphrasing correctly.
No, you're 100% correct. And I'd always had it. And so I was talking to my coach about, okay, is this a thing I need to just, be a person and find the parts I like about my job, and then find ways to go through the parts that I don't necessarily love about my job, and then maybe focus more on, well, how do I expand that part that I'm passionate about?
Right.
Because it's not like I just, I didn't have options and I went, okay, I've got to do this job I don't like at all. Sure. I like a lot of it, but it was just getting less and less. And also when I was doing management, a lot of the team building I was doing, I thought that was going to be a lot more teaching than it was. Yes. But then it ended up turning into something else. And so it actually helped me to realize I should lean into the education part. Gotcha. And then as a wonderful side note, I got to, realize that I had all these network of people. You do it for 10 years, 12 years at the time I was starting to feel that. I knew these great people, but I just never had anybody who moved to, Lincoln, Nebraska, or, moved to Portland.
I connect with in that way as a unicorn.
Yeah. Or I had the unicorn, but I never had a client. So the unicorn and I didn't connect, which didn't refuel my fire and my passion. Sure. And so it was, that was a side note of starting the podcast. I thought, well, now I'm going to help educate people, and that'll make me feel better about this. Mm-hmm. But then now I realized, not only am I enjoying what I'm doing more, but I'm also having enjoyable conversations like these.
Sure.
I'm talking to more agents now.
And that opens the door to those, not only more relationships, but obviously you now have people who follow you from different places in the world that you can now refer, right? Like, so that's interesting. Another question for you was, you mentioned that you were averaging between 560 and 780, but you have, and in terms of the total dollar, I'm assuming that's listing prices, right? Like homes between 580 and 700 and 560 and 780. And so, and we were just talking about affordability. And so when I get these first time buyers, right? HGTV, of course, has set an expectation that is high. People want HGTV living, but they have not that money. They're not earning that kind of money. And it was funny when you and Gloria were speaking, a lot of times, I think that what also is affecting the housing market are factors that go beyond housing. For example, high gas prices, high food prices, right? Like other things that people feel responsible, high healthcare, high daycare for the kids, whatever it is. The one thing that we're not saying is high are salaries, right? People's salaries are not jumping up in accordance with where we are. And I've been wondering for a long time, how in the world are people on the West Coast affording it? Because here in the South, you know, like people are shocked out of their shoes. These prices are unprecedented for this area, right? And I keep telling people, hey, we're really adjusting. We're like, California is way more, New York is way more, Chicago, Texas, a lot of places have more higher prices. Did you find that it's just people's salaries went up, or they're just making lifestyle adjustments? Because I'm starting to use words like multi-generational housing, because you got to bring people in there together, or else y'all can't afford it on a single family salary. So what do you think about that?
Okay, don't let me forget about the multi-generational, because I have some thoughts on that too. And again, all my thoughts right now are just because I'm in this every day and I'm hearing it from other people. Some of this is from my 16 years experience, but it's also just, I have a bunch of great information I'm getting from other people. So everything that you were talking about the price of things and wages, that's an index that I have had. Like, I wake up and look at every day since 2005 when I went to my first Buffini event, and realized I was going to be thinking about first-time home buyers. The affordability index, it is so based on wages, and we have never had in the 16 years I've been doing this, we've never had an inflation that has fought so hard against wages. We've had wages still be below where they should be for just a natural cost of living.
Sure.
But we've never had inflation on top of it like this. So right. I think that's why, you know, that backs up Gloria's concerns that we are an affordability issue, but those factors of affordability and the wages against it, you know, if we're fighting an 8% inflation and we're hoping for a 3% wages increase, but we're looking at maybe a 2.5 to 2.25,
right?
Then we're going to be fighting it. The one thing I can offer as just an outsider viewpoint is here in California, as I mentioned before, I've just seen people adjust.
Just make the adjustment. We got to figure it out.
We got it. You know what? We're going to live in a townhome as kids. You know, once you get to the point that I saw the scales tip when people were renting for, you know, when I remember people being freaked out about their rent getting to $2,000.
Right.
But then
that's where we are here.
Yeah. And this was 16 years ago. So now 2,100 is the national average for a 3-bed.
Right.
But here's the thing that happened back then. Something flipped when it got to 2,000. You know, it's kind of like there's a mindset around here. We have this $1 million thing. I have people that won't take a 985 offer when their house is worth 950 because they want $1 million. But once it, for my first time buyers, once it got over $2,000 a month in rent, and once interest rates drop below, get ready for this, 6%, then they got super excited and started buying a house that might have been a little less than what they wanted originally.
Sure.
So I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
But I think the market has some shifting to do with what you were talking about at the end. Multi-generational.
Yes.
House hacks, huge. I have first-time buyers that are asking parents to co-sign so they can take their roommate situation. If they can't afford the purchase, they're taking their roommate situation, getting a co-signer and just transferring it over there. And then they still pay the same amount and the roommate pays it in, they kick that back to the parents, you know. And then I have other people who are taking their house hack and going, this is nice. We can all still live together, but you got to live with me in this little smaller place.
Right.
But the house hacking is huge. And the generation, the millennials and the Zs, something they really just are into. There's a longer 20, 30 something living together.
Yes.
There's more of a, you know, my dad would have kicked my butt if I tried to pull a Friends
into the house. Yeah, no way. Not my that wasn't a
hang
part
out
of
with your roommates in your 20s that long. He would have been like, get your own place, you know, let's get going.
Right. So last question for you. So I started a small podcast because I've been in radio for a bunch of years before I got into not before real estate, but in conjunction with, I did radio. And I was doing a podcast, and like you mentioned, I felt like, you know, all we really have to sell, we have valuable information. I sell information. That's what I have. I have expert knowledge when it comes to real estate. That's all I'm selling. Okay. And so I get on these podcasts and on these first-time home buyer seminars and all of these things. And I started getting frustrated because it felt like you said, it's just me and I'm talking to two people. There's two people tuned into this, right? And I was frustrated because I'm like, I'm giving you $1 million worth of game here, and you are not even paying attention. You're not tuned in. Why am I giving stuff that's so, I charge people thousands of dollars for this. In the real world, I'm giving you the house hack, that free information, and you're not showing up. But then you want to complain to me about, oh, the market and this and the prices. And had you listened, I told you some tips and tricks on things that you could do. So how did you overcome not only the frustration of the starting phase so that you can continue on? And when did you feel like it started picking up enough that you were like, man, this is going good. Like, I'm feeling this. And do you pay? Because there's, you know, some people podcast for free out of their homes. Some people like have paid services and they go to like a whole studio and cost. So I'd be curious to just hear that journey a little bit.
I think the first thing you're talking about, you talk to any experienced agent and everybody knows the pulling teeth of the first time home buyer seminar. It's the best way for new clients to get things rolling for them. And you know, but we all think back and like, oh God, trying to get people to show up. What free lunch, what circus act am I going to have out?
I don't have to put on a show. You want a house. Right?
Yeah. And it's the one thing I learned back from my days, because I jumped on the Titanic. I got licensed February 14th on Valentine's Day in 2006. Guess what happened? Yeah.
I was around. I remember.
And my first year in real estate, I didn't have very many transactions because of that. I was so into Buffini, but everybody only knew me as previous life David. Mm-hmm. So, and there was a real difference in the way the market was. So it was tough. But 2007, the minute the negative headlines started, guess what started filling up those first time buyer seminars? Guess what started happening? My phone started ringing, because you have to remember, even though we're on a 10-year run, a lot of first time buyers are only 8 months, 12 months into thinking about this.
Even thinking, right.
So with the minute there's a negative headline, right now there's only could be negative headlines. But the minute it says housing market slowing down, prices coming back to normal,
here they come.
Yeah, and you and I know it's like we ain't normal. It's just we're at the top of the V. We're still at the top of the V. It's just barely coming down. But yeah, that's a tough one to crack. And as far as
so when did this take off for you on your podcast?
Well, that was the thing. I absolutely did not think podcast was going to be it. I had a conversation with my wife, and I looked at all social media aspects. I studied my face off. I got a PhD in social media. I'd already been doing videos. I'd already been doing Facebook and getting a lot of business from Facebook. 2016, 17, and 18, I studied, and then I decided to splash everything. And I was positive my YouTube channel was going to be my chance.
Okay.
Podcast did it. I did the podcast also. I did Instagram also. And I even did some LinkedIn, but the podcast was just a thing that hit for me.
Based on YouTube. So YouTube really took over. It was
no, I thought YouTube was going to take off. I just added the podcast as something to do, and my podcast response started coming in so much.
Separately. So on your own website, because I see it in the chat, by the way.
I originally did. I again, through my studies, I talked to someone and I just did a free, there's a podcasting producer system called Anchor.
Okay.
And you go to Anchor, and they'll put it out there for you. And I did it. And then I was like, wow, there I am on Apple Podcast. How funny. Yeah. And then I got big, and then I ended up getting a production team to do the editing for the show. But I was doing my first ones on Anchor myself.
Okay. And then as it took off, you've invested more into it. And then obviously, okay, that's fantastic, man. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
The one thing I could tell you is the successful podcast that I hear people out there, because that's the reality I got real quickly, was this goes everywhere. It's tough when you're trying to give the information to first time buyers. It's kind of like, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And as much as you want to share that, the real estate podcasts that I've listened to that are doing well, if you're just trying to be regional, you need to be way more about regional. If you don't have a product that you're selling to the rest of the country, for me, I'm just educating first-time buyers. I have a ton of listeners that listen to my show that I never get to connect with the unicorn, but that business model is the reason why they trust me. It's like, yeah, sure, I might get a little taste if you go and work with somebody else, but really all I want is that you work with the right person in your town. And I give them a playbook. Here's the questions to ask. And some of them use that and never call my people. But then some of them call me, and then I get to call Gloria, and we have a nice referral. But there are a lot of local podcasts I'm hearing, city-centric podcasts, neighborhood podcasts that, there's a thing in social media. You can be the person with 2 million followers, but what's your conversion? Correct. Or you can be the person with, 20,000 followers, but they're all
convert. Exactly. That's way more valuable, for sure.
So you can have a small audience, but they're there are these new podcasts called CityCast.
Okay.
And they've been reaching out to me. And they're starting to expand. I think right now you can hear Denver and Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting idea that I think realtors are going to start jumping on fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. It's kind of like a daily, it's like the local news, but podcast style.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Podcasting is awesome if you can once you get the traction, because there's a lot out there, right? Like it's kind of like social media. There's millions and millions of things to look at, right? But what do you choose to focus on? And I think that, like you said, lots of people will hear you, and it builds brand recognition. And so if you are big enough at some point for branding, it was working great for my branding. It was not working. So I'm not at the stage where I need branding. I need conversion. I need customers more immediately. I don't just need you to be like, oh yeah, that's what that realtor guy we saw on the TV, I heard him on the podcast, but there's no business coming from it, right? Like that's just recognition. Well,
one of the biggest pieces of that I'm seeing with the first time buyer set, to help conversion is reviews, testimonials, and anytime if it helps with the frustration, if you do that $1,000 information and you only got 2 people in it, but if one of them becomes a client, if you can repurpose their review to you and have that become a part of your branding, instead of me and my trophy, it's listen to these 2 people,
right.
Take yourself out of the postcard.
Exactly. And put the people who you've actually served out front. That is excellent. Yes, I agree.
They really respond to that. Like the episode I just put out right now, I have a unicorn up in DC who got that VA buyer a home, and nice young couple. And we got the 2 of them up there, and I knew they'd be great. And I just am waiting for my mailbox to be full of thank you for that. That was so great. And I'm just like, awesome. So in other words, less of me, more of other people. Got it. So
yeah. I like that.
Awesome. Well, so our team is about 7 agents strong now, and I wanted you to meet them. I know you've spoken to Melissa, right? She's working on a couple of clients. So I want to give the ones who are here an opportunity to just introduce themselves and maybe mention the areas that we cover or they cover, because we do cover a wide area. And I know you reach out to me and you're like, hey, do you have someone for this? Do you have someone for that? And I've been trying to fill those gaps, with our teammates. But I feel like we go as far south as maybe Sarasota and Fort North as, I don't know, Michael, you cover mostly north. So
I can go as far as Gainesville as of right now. So
he covers Ocala, Hernando.
Yep, Pasco if need be, Sumter, Lake. Had to do some work in Osceola and Orange. So it's anywhere in Central Florida, really, from east to west coast.
Yeah, that's a wide area. And then I don't know if Precious just turned her camera off.
She just disappeared on us. No, don't call on me.
Oh my gosh. Well, she covers she's similar to me, Hillsborough, Pasco, Pinellas area. So any cities within that area, Tampa, Brandon, Riverview, all those areas. And then Kyle.
So I'm primarily Tampa, Riverview, Brandon, Valrico, everywhere out to Sarasota. But I will go to Orlando. I will go You know what, man? If it's over $1 million, I'm going wherever it is. If it's over $1 million, call me. I will take a ride. Like, just, it's funny because I just don't like driving really, really far for itty bitty money. Like if you're saying, hey, drive 3 hours and you might make $1,000, I'm gonna be like, let's see if we can refer someone else. Let's see if we can find someone in that area,
Well, that's why talking to Gloria has been so helpful for me, because with the remote living now, I think that's changing things too. And I think that will also reduce the affordability, back to normal. I don't think the big city, Silicon Valley isn't necessarily going to be able to charge Silicon Valley prices when the tech guys go, I can live an hour away and come in the office twice a week.
Right.
We do computers, right? I can do this at home on my computer.
Right. And that definitely changed the mindset a lot during the pandemic. People working from home changed a lot of things for sure.
And that's why it's important for me to have this relationship, because I don't want to call a unicorn and say, hey, will you drive an hour and a half? I'd rather be like, hey, your team covers all these areas. I'm getting a little too far central, who do we call? And then it's like, oh, okay, well, now we call over here. I'm getting a little too far north. Who do we call? Because I'm not going to go, Gloria, here's my first time buyer with a 610 credit that needs to work on their credit for the next 5 months. And then they're going to be ready to go with 3.5% down. Will you take them an hour and a half away to find a house?
Especially with offers not being accepted in mass, like that's a long ride for. Yeah, you're not getting that. They've already got multiple offers. Most of them are going to be way above what you can afford, so there will be some tweaks to the business. It's interesting you said one other thing too. You work with Disney people.
Yeah.
So are these the higher ups at Disney or regular folks? Because I have some Disney friends on this side, and Disney doesn't have the best reputation for paying that great. And so a lot of those folks are kind of not doing so well financially. They work at the happiest place on earth, but they're not the happiest people on earth when it comes to the money, except for when you start getting into that upper level management. Those guys are making a ton of money. What's been your experience out there with?
So here's Disney in 60 seconds. As someone who has worked with Disney in high school and college, and then in my 30s, and now selling to all of them. Disney pays great for the job that it's supposed to be, which is a good entry-level part-time. They're always higher than minimum wage.
Okay.
When you hear people say Disney doesn't pay great, it's because they're 45 and still working on Main Street, and they think they should be being paid like they could buy a house, because people love the culture there so much at Disney.
So they didn't leave to graduate to what they should be doing next.
Yes. Yes. So, but people will work at Disney for 12 years and it'll feel like 12 minutes to them. And they'll be like, well, wait a minute, I'm a grown-up now. My friends have jobs. And I'm like, yeah, they went someplace where the promotion wasn't to go from the chipmunk to the mouse. It was, so
right.
There's that. But the management level doesn't get paid great. So if you run the Main Street store, you don't get paid great.
Okay.
But what my niche was, I was in entertainment. My high school job was, I got my braces off. I was in a parade, then I got my braces off, and then they said I should be Peter Pan. So that was my high school job.
That's cool.
And then I worked in the fancy club in college, in the fancy restaurant, Club 33. And
that is a fancy restaurant. Everybody can't go in Club 33. You got to get a special invite to get in there.
I could serve the food. I was not allowed to eat it.
Is that right?
Oh yeah,
I believe that. Yeah,
I couldn't get a reservation.
Holy cow!
You can't. You have to be. You
got to be certain. Yeah,
you got to be a member, and it's a waiting list. But what I found was a niche. Just like there are a lot of realtors that will talk about when they get in with a hospital and a group of doctors or a group of nurses, a group of firemen or police officers, where one of them hasn't decided to be a realtor, because that happens too. But I found the niche at Disneyland. When I was 30, they opened the new Disney park, and I actually went back to work there because they had a live television show experience. They were doing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and they had me come in for a little bit because I had done some live television in Hollywood in my 20s. And that's where I got to meet the crew. And all the crew at Disneyland are union. They're actually team.
Good. So they're doing all right. Yes. Okay. Behind the scenes is where the money is at. Behind the camera guys.
Because when the show closes, the actors got to go out and get another gig and another paycheck. But guess what they're doing? They're turning Small World into Christmas Small World, or they got shifts coming out, the yin yang.
Yeah.
Well, that's my niche at Disney. So, but it's very funny when I tell people around here that I worked with a lot of first-time buyers at Disneyland. I will get comments like, "Wow, what did you have to get 5 of them so they could afford a house?"
That's the reputation here too. I'm telling you, like, really. I know a couple of walkers, and they were like,
"Yeah,
no, it's not really."
But
like,
it's funny.
Fun place.
I've been trying to break into management there because they have a big management building, and that's a tough circle of people to get into. Also, the entertainers have, or the tech support, again, like doctors or like nurses or cops and firemen. If you can get in with a group like that who have downtime together, they talk about their realtors. Everybody loves to talk about, everyone wants a new story in the firehouse. I don't want to hear about Joe's lawn again, but if Joe's talking about home shopping, everyone wants to hear the dish, whether it's drama in the dish or whether it's HGTV stuff. Everybody likes to talk about that. So if you become the thing, and that's what when I started the podcast, I was like, you guys listen to this between shows. You sit in the green room for an hour and play video games. Listen to my podcast.
Right.
That's what I thought it was going to be. And then it went national. But yeah, it's an interesting, I think a lot of realtors in Orlando and in Anaheim, when someone from Disney calls and wants a house, you're immediately thinking, oh my gosh, some dreamer, some churro salesman who's been renting for 10 years and can't wait. And I'm like, you haven't had a raise in 7 years. So,
how are you going to afford it? That's pretty funny.
but if one of them had a mom or a dad that wanted to help their kid out and bought them a place, they could rent it to the 6 other people on Main Street and they would be happy forever. Mm-hmm. My whole goal right now is to have the podcast supplement my business as, on a much larger scale, and it's growing right now. My whole goal, I've had it on my vision board since 2009, is to buy apartments in Anaheim. And
are you an investor? Do you invest in real estate?
Yeah, I have, but I've never done a multi-door.
Gotcha.
So I want to buy an apartment, and I want to, when the techs come in, all the management techs are my clients. I sold them all their houses. So I say, hey, when the new guys come in, send them to my apartment, get them in the apartment, fill all my doors with techs, and then they get $500 off their month if they come to my seminar. And that's how I get butts in the seat. And then I sell them a house, get them out, and get a new tenant right in.
That's a good strategy there.
Renting apartment rentals around Disneyland is something I don't think Disneyland has figured out that
they could do and profit from. Sure.
Yeah, because they love to commune.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, David, I want to thank you so much for coming out and talking to us. I know you usually talk to your how to buy a homies. which I love. But we're hoping that we can continue to, you know, build our relationship here. We all are Buffco agents. You know, we believe in the relational approach, and that leads to the longevity of our business. So congratulations on what you're doing, and much more success. And I'm happy that we're your to-go team here in the Tampa Bay area. I know there's a ton of people wanting to move here. You know, we got a lot to offer.
Love it. Champ Town now.
Yeah.
Yes. Go
Yeah.
Bucks. Go Raiders. Go Vikings.
I think areas like yours are gonna also profit with the remote living. I think, you know, people are gonna want to come down and be in the sunshine in some place
because they don't have to be at the office. Sure, I see
Yeah.
a lot of that already. People relocating for that. For sure.
So yeah, I really appreciate having you guys there as an asset. And you know, I always want to respect everybody that I work with, and I think the Buffini working relationally, having those strong relationships with the lenders, you know, there are people out there trying to grab these leads, and with just getting them right into the house. And what's great with the Buffco people is I'm like, hey, give them 20 minutes. I know you're overqualified for the job, but give them 20 minutes and then get them to your lender. And then we just check in once a month. And how's it going? You know, see where the savings is, see where the credit is. And I'm amazed at how loyal these people are. And, you know, you guys really, I tell people it's the wedding photographer analogy. You know, the transactional realtors are wedding photographers that just think about the bride and groom, and the Buffinis are going, oh, look, there's 5 deals on the left and there's 5 deals on the right, you know, every time we are meeting a client. So it's so helpful, and I appreciate it. And I'm glad I got a chance to say hi, gang.
I'm glad you did too. It's very nice to meet you, David. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Did anyone want to say anything before we wrap up? I'll let David start his day. No. All right.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, David, and we shall be in touch.
Hang in there, gang. If we can get through this time working with buyers, just wait. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.